Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as Kevlar Prom Dress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with Raider Homer and T3 Raider Facts, and we're ready to talk some Raiders football together.
Always ready to talk some Raider football, and we're getting closer and closer, so I'm getting more excited by the day.
Camp is finally here, and I hope we have a season to follow closely behind.
Amen to that.
Yeah, today on the show, we are going to be talking about that season to follow. I'm starting to get a little bit excited that it might be a possibility. They might actually go through with it. So got my hopes set high.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we got the regular Raiders news. We got some NFL news. Got some college football news. We got a bunch of stuff in here for you.
And you know what, Raider Nation? We haven't heard from you yet. T3 has been our only caller, so we want to hear from you. Here's how you get in touch with us. Leave us a message on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Or you can also text us at that number. Our email address is onlynationpod@gmail.com, and we can also be found on Twitter and Instagram at onlynationpod. You can also check us out on Facebook and YouTube at The Only Nation Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on your favorite social media accounts and podcast app. Don't forget to send us a message with your name and address, and we'll get you some free Raider swag sent out. Also, check out our new website at onlynationpod.com.
All right, and our latest news, training camp is still underway. In fact, today was the first day that they had helmets on. We're well on our way to padded practices next week. I believe they start the 17th. And this year, the trainers, they've implemented a rotating schedule where some players will have on and off days to maintain being fresh. Whether this is in response to COVID or just preventing injuries remains to be seen. But for example, today, Josh Jacobs and Trent Brown, who was just their off day, they were still there. They still participated in interviews and discussions, but it was their off day just to keep them fresh. It wasn't due to injury. It was just the way that the trainers have them set up.
August 17th is also a special day because it's John Gruden's birthday.
Woohoo!
Happy birthday, Coach Gru.
And I believe August 16th is the day that all rosters have to be down to 80 players.
It's a big day.
It is a big day. We've already made a lot of cuts, so there probably won't be too many to make, but I have a feeling that just like any other training camp preseason time, there's going to be a lot of signings and a lot of cuts over the next few weeks.
There will be a lot of moving and shaking this week alone.
Yes, there will.
It's here. Football season's coming. Buckle up. Let's go along for the ride.
All right, this year, Allegiant Stadium, it will stand empty for college football season. This past week, the Mountain West Conference, where UNLV plays, postponed their slate of football games. And additionally, the Pac-12, who was going to play their championship game there, they also postponed their 2020 football season. As of right now, only the Raiders are scheduled to play there.
Man, they got that stadium all to themselves.
They do.
They do indeed. And it comes as no surprise that offensive coordinator Greg Olsen, earlier this week, he spoke about the possibility of using running back Lynn Bowden Jr. in some sets as a quarterback. He played wide receiver, running back, and quarterback in college, and it just makes sense and opens up another dimension of the Raiders' offense. In fact, I even remember in high school he punted, so he can do pretty much anything.
You know, T3, you called it, saying that he should just be the emergency quarterback. I really like that idea. It'll save a roster spot for us and give us some depth somewhere else where we really need it.
And, he played quarterback most of the season last year.
Yeah, he had to.
I really don't want to see him in his rookie season as a quarterback.
Oh, no.
Hopefully Marcus Mariota would be able to handle it. But one thing I do like, though, is if you can picture Mariota and Bowden Jr. in the backfield, in the red zone, inside the 5, running the little RBOs or even a halfback pass. You know what I mean? I would love to see that. That's gone away from, our playbook as a team. Marcus Allen was great at the halfback pass. I would love to see that kind of trickery,
If you have Mariota standing straight up in the shotgun with Bowden right behind him, then you have Mariota go in motion, look and see what that defense will do. They'll be scrambling everywhere.
Right. And you could just direct snap to Bowden Jr. You could do all kinds of stuff with that guy. and Mariota. I like that idea. That's a good idea as far as him being the emergency quarterback and getting reps at quarterback.
Yeah, I definitely think it's gonna open things up for us, and hopefully we'll take advantage of it. I remember when Gruden had Cordero Patterson.
Yep.
He had this great Swiss Army knife, and he just let him go. He didn't do anything with him. So
he used him lots of different ways.
Yeah, but compared to what he could have done.
True. I still remember seeing those Marcus Allen halfback passes, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Those were awesome. All right, we've had some transactions. We've signed linebacker Bryce Hager, defensive end Aruna, and veteran defensive lineman and former first-round pick Dayton Jones.
Works for me.
Yep.
I guess, whatever. Just it makes me think of them as camp bodies,
Yeah, have you ever heard of any of them?
No.
Dayton Jones I had. Adi Aruna, I'd never heard of him before the roster, to be honest. Bryce Hager I'd heard of a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of guys on and off the roster in the next few weeks, just like these guys.
Yeah. And in other news, legendary Ricky's Sports Theater and Grill in San Leandro, once named the number 2 sports bar in the country and the official home of the Raider Nation, is struggling to stay afloat through the COVID-19 shutdowns. They are hurting and they need the nation's support. There's a GoFundMe up for them, and several superfans are trying to round up support as well. I know that Lucille is putting something together on her end. Time for Raider Nation to rise up.
Definitely, and we'll get that GoFundMe up on Twitter. I'll try to find Lucille's tweet on the little thing that she's putting together, and we will try to get Ricky as much as support that we possibly can as a nation.
I've been to Ricky's 3 times, and I have to say that the first time I went is the first time that I met Gorilla Rilla.
That's awesome. I got a funny story. The first time I ever went is the one and only time I ever went. That's the only time that I ever met Rod Martin. But I didn't believe that it was Rod Martin. He's sitting there showing me all these rings and all this and that, but he had this offbeat personality to me, and I just couldn't get a good read on him, and I didn't believe it was him. But then I started seeing pictures of him online. I'm like, man, I talked to that dude there. I didn't even get a picture or anything. I just felt like a fool afterwards. But the scary part about that night, that's where the Hells Angels hang out, right? We've talked about them on this podcast before. So when I was with the Silver and Black of Central Texas, we have a design on the back of our shirts, and we've turned it into a patch. So I'm sitting in a biker bar with the patch that has rockers on them. At first they had their backs to me, but then they're facing me and they're looking at my patch and they're looking at my patch. And all of a sudden this guy's just walking in circles around Ricky's bar, just kind of mean mugging me, and I kept my eye on him. But then sure enough, he stops by, he starts asking a bunch of questions. And my friend from Northern California, he had to sit there and say, no, this is my friend, don't worry about it. It's nothing like that. But yeah, my friend told me, hey, dude, that dude looked like he wanted to stab you. And yeah, he did. He did look like that. I grew up in biker bars, so I knew to keep my eye open when I saw the Hells Angels there.
They're nice. They're just misunderstood.
Yeah.
If they come after you with a pipe, you better watch out.
All right, now we got a new segment, Homer's Heroes. Las Vegas lawyer William Schuller is suing China on behalf of himself and 2 clients for causing the Raiders to play their home games without fans. Damages alleged in the suit include the loss of enjoyment in experiencing the Raiders' inaugural Las Vegas season in person. Man, that's heroic in my mind. Take it to them, man, because, yeah, they're to blame for this shit.
Okay.
How could you come up with a defense for that?
You can't.
You can't.
They ruined it all for everybody. All those people that think about it, all those people that died in Italy from that, everywhere all over the world, and what's going on in America right now, they're to blame, I love it. Take it to them,
There are a lot of legal experts that do not think he has a leg to stand on, though.
Probably not, but hey, you know what? Go for it, man.
It makes Homer feel good.
Yeah, just to make a statement.
How many billions of dollars in punitive damages would be rewarded?
I don't know. A lot.
It'd be amazing.
It needs to be a class action.
Right.
We just keep writing zeros on the end of that number.
All right, Raider Nation, we do have some sad and unfortunate news to report, so I'll be the bearer of bad news here, not once, but twice. Now, first of all, this should be an exciting time for NFL rookies. just starting out their careers as professional football players in the heart of training camp. But the COVID-19 pandemic has made it a very uneasy time. Now, for Raiders rookie running back Lynn Bowden Jr., this time is now tainted by tragedy. Bowden announced on Twitter this past Sunday night that his grandmother had passed away due to COVID-19 complications. Now, back on June 10th, Bowden visited his grandmother at her house, most likely well before she contracted the illness. He and his grandmother were clearly very close. Now, it's precisely the health and well-being of these players and their families that have had several of them opting out of the 2020 season and many others who've had serious reservations. Just last month, Rodney Hudson said that he had a family member who was immunocompromised, which made it all the more crucial that the NFL take all necessary steps to protect the players and staff. The Raiders have taken very seriously this stance, and they still currently have 2 players who have tested positive for the virus, defensive end Max Crosby and running back Rod Smith. Our most profound condolences to the Bowden family and Lynn Bowden Jr. on the loss of his grandmother. For everyone else, I'd like to reiterate Lynn's words. This is real. Take it seriously, and also hug your loved ones as often as you can, because you never know. And you really never know. And this is one of those things where, and I mentioned this in several different circles, we as fans need to rally around this young man, regardless of whether he makes the team or not. Of course, we assume that he will, since he is such a high draft pick. But regardless of what happens, we need to rally around him and show him Raider love. As we do for this next gentleman. I want to pass on condolences to a member of the Raider family and a guy who I'm really pulling for to make the team, and that's free agent signee running back William Stanback. He's returned to Raiders camp after the passing, and this is just incredible, passing of both of his parents. His dad, William Sr., passed away on July 21st from bladder cancer, and then his mom, Patricia, died just 9 days later from a heart attack. This is just... I can't conceive of this. I've still got both my parents around. Dad's 87, mom's 84, but to lose both parents within 9 days, this is just an incomprehensible tragedy. And I'd love nothing better than just to reach out and give this guy a hug. If he could make the team, what a rallying cry this would be for him and for his new family, because the Raiders now and Raider Nation, we're his family. So we definitely want to give condolences to William Stanback and his family, and certainly to Lynn Bowden Jr. and his.
Yeah, prayers and condolences to both of their families. I lost my mother in 2012. It was very hard to deal with. It was very hard to, continue on. Of course, I have to because of my daughter, but I can feel their pain, and I know you can too, Heidi. So
yes, definitely. I lost both my parents, but there was several years in between their passing. Lost my father in 97 and my mom also in 2012.
Well, I do have some happier news to report, and that's on the arrival of, and Homer will just have to practice saying the last name, Nick Kwiatkowski, or you can just call him number 44.
The dude. I like the dude.
The dude. That's right. The dude. Well, the dude is not a stranger to wearing the green dot, but for the first time in his career, the Las Vegas Raiders linebacker will be asked to do it full time. The former Chicago Bear was the first player the Silver and Black signed this offseason, and despite offers from several other teams, the Raiders' rich history proved to be a selling point for Kwiatkowski, in addition to the opportunity he's been given. Now, for years, defensive coordinator Paul Guenther and the Raiders front office have tried to get the right pieces in place, but acquiring premier linebackers has been challenging until now. With Kwiatkowski and Corey Littleton in the mix, Guenther finally has 2 athletic linebackers capable of communicating his system effectively, which will fall heavily on the shoulders of number 44. So I'm looking for big things out of the dude.
Yeah, I liked his press conference. I think that him talking about having the green dot, that pretty much puts him in the middle. And I think Whitehead, I think he was on the outside with the green dot, but that's rare. So, look for Kwiatkowski, the dude, to be in the middle, which is what I'm really wanting, because Littleton on the outside shutting down those tight ends is what we need.
Well, I think we're going to have a lot of sets where we're only going to have 2 linebackers, period. So
yeah,
we're probably not even going to have someone on the weak side.
Well, I mean, in base you will, but mostly they'll be in the nickel because that's the NFL these days. Yeah.
Right.
Nickel or dime.
We'll just see where they stick Mr. Muse.
I think he's going to be in the dime for sure. He'll be in the dime. And you know what? He'll rotate. You might see him in the nickel. If Kwiatkowski, remember, he's only played 8 games. I don't think he's as fast as Muse. So if Muse can come on strong and have good, he has decent coverage skills. So his speed is what you want that on the field. So he still has a shot. And there are other running teams. Think about the Ravens, right? They run a lot of RPOs and they run the ball a lot. So, I don't know. I don't think we play them, but there are running teams. Now, when we're playing the Chiefs, we're not going to have a weak side linebacker a whole lot.
Well, I just saw the magic that Marinelli was able to do with the front four in Tampa Bay, and I just can't wait to see what he unleashes for the Raiders.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to see what he puts together. All right, and that brings us to T3 and Heidi's High Five.
Okay, here is this week's version of Heidi's High Five. Number 1, and we just spoke of him a minute ago, I want to talk about a kid I really, really like. Undrafted free agent linebacker Javen White from UNLV. Now, he has an uphill battle to make the 53-man roster, and in a normal year, he might at least get 1 or 2 really good opportunities. But in the COVID era, an even greater premium has been placed on the player's mental understanding of the playbook. He just has to constantly be prepared, pay attention in the meetings, and I would suggest stick close to another linebacker in the room who has made the exact same journey, and that would be newcomer Corey Littleton. White's window of opportunity might be small, but he's not letting the predicament he and so many other UDFAs are experiencing hinder what got him to this point. On the bright side, in the event White is unable to earn a spot on the 53-man roster, the NFL has increased the practice squad limit from its usual 10 players to give more players an opportunity. So fingers crossed for Mr. White. Number 2, a lot has been said about Jonathan Abram already. The second-year safety remembers waking up before the crack of dawn and watching his mom leave for work before anyone else was on the road, and he revealed what that was like in his Players Tribune piece released last week. I was raised on burgers and fries, and I was proud of it. That's what he said. For as long as Abram can remember, his mother worked at Wendy's to put food on the table for him and his brother, often spending more time at work than at his Little League games. But Jonathan admired her for that. Determined to make ends meet, Jonathan never saw his mother complain or whine about the circumstances of which they lived, and she went above and beyond to give him a chance to play football. She never let us see her stressed, he says. I only understood it when I got older. In the year that Abram has been a Raider, he's made sure to give back to the woman who gave him every chance she could to help him survive, including a car and a new home. Abram's upbringing is about more than perseverance. It's about giving essential workers around the country the respect they deserve. Number 3, last week I started with my camp overachievers and underachievers and said that I would change these out week to week. Well, for this week's camp overachiever, and even though we're just starting with the helmets and haven't even gotten to the pads yet, for this week's camp overachiever, I'm going to go with safety Demarius Randall. When he played in Cleveland, he went up against some great talent in practice, and he got to see AB actually on the field back in 2018, twice as a matter of fact. I think that he and Jonathan Abram can team up well this year, and I believe that Mr. Abram will have to lean on Randall a lot, which is why I'm making him my camp overachiever this week. Now, number 4. As far as my underachieving camp body, I had to choose between Arden Key and Brandon Parker. And since the Raiders have brought in lots of competition at both positions, I'm not sure that either of these guys will even make the team. And so I'm going to leave both of these guys alone for this week and focus on linebacker Bryce Hager, who we just signed. Although he was an All-American at Baylor, the production has just not been there in the pro ranks. I hope that he surprises me, perhaps on special teams or maybe even as a quality backup at the backer position. But Mr. Hager is going to have to prove it to me. Just call me a skeptic. Number 5, Mike Mayock has said many times that he thrives in the late rounds of the draft. Well, since he didn't have a pick lower than round 4, he'll be keeping a very close eye on players in rounds 4 through 7, just in case there's a guy on his board who may have happened to slip through the cracks on another team as teams start to make cuts. I think that Mayock will bring in 1 or maybe 2 players from among that crop, and I think that 1 or 2 of his own undrafted signees will also make the team. And that is this week's version of Heidi's High Five.
All right. Thank you, T3. Another good one, as always.
Jonathan Abram, I like that story. being able to overcome all that, and play well and get to the NFL, that's awesome. And I think, he's gonna do very well this year as long as he can stay healthy. But as far as Demarius Randall, I think he's gonna have to beat out Eric Harris. I think Eric Harris last year proved that he's a good enough ball hawk and open field tackler that he pretty much has that spot at free safety.
I don't know. I could see it go either way. I would probably lean more toward Randall, but I could see it either way.
Well, Randall needs to learn how to tackle.
True.
But Brandon Parker, I sure hope he doesn't make the 53.
Yeah, he was a bust.
I've about had it with him.
Yeah.
I think when they brought in Jordan Ruse last week, I think that may have kind of signaled the end right there.
And see, as far as Mayock in the lower rounds, I think that's what he was trying to do by trading PJ Hall, was get those picks that we didn't have last draft back somehow, some way. And that, you're right, you're spot on. I like that kind of thinking there, T3, that, he's going to be looking for those players that were on his board in those rounds that are going to get cut. That's good thinking.
I've heard some talk among some of the talking heads today in the last couple of days that the Raiders perhaps, and maybe some other teams as well, are looking at possibly shopping first-round picks to other teams because of the unknown quantities of what's going to happen in next year's draft, and with the college season being up in the air, to go ahead and trade for a player now that you can get some known value out of, and give up on a draft pick that you don't know how they're going to pan out, or how the board's even going to stack up with so many teams not playing.
Yeah, there's a real talk about draft picks being devalued for this next draft that'll be coming up. It'll be interesting to see what the professional teams do with them because of that.
And that leads us into our NFL discussion.
How is the college football season going to affect the NFL? In the last week or so, we've had several college conferences postpone their football seasons. Let's see, the MAC did, the Mountain West, the Pac-12. But today, the SEC and the ACC announced that they will be having their college football seasons. So the NFL is going to have to be dealing with players coming out right on time when they normally will, players coming out and being eligible for the draft much later than they normally will, possibly even moving NFL games around, playing games on Saturday this year. How do you guys see the NFL changing simply because the college football season has changed so much?
Well, if I could say this real quick, the Big 12 and the SEC, they're still looking to play. I think I heard the numbers were like 53 colleges still want to play, 77 have postponed or canceled, right? So 53 schools that still play, you can still have a draft if they play. But I've also heard that The Rock, he bought the XFL, or he's looking to buy the XFL, and they want to play on Saturdays. I think this is the exact spot that the XFL needs to step in and prove, their worth to the world of football. Because these college kids, right, even though you should always go to school, right, this is their meal ticket. So if you could get the XFL going, I mean, you can see a lot of these college players say, forget it, I'm going to go play in the XFL, and then they could get drafted from the XFL, I would say.
Yeah, but the XFL has always been a spring league. Would they play now in the fall, or would they wait until the spring?
I don't think anybody knows. And if they try to do it in the fall, I think they're going to be jumping the gun, and there's no way to get it organized to the point where you'll have a quality product on the field. I think what a lot of people don't understand is that you can't just take a team and just roll them out and have them go. You can do that in some cases in basketball, but you can't in football. And that's the thing. And I believe that some of these colleges and universities are taking a huge chance by going ahead and trying to start a season, anticipating that COVID is not going to come in and shut it down in some way, shape, or form. I think it's better to go ahead and cancel than to go ahead and maybe try to play one or two games and then have to shut the season down prematurely.
See, football starts in September, right? So if the XFL were to start working on it now or here in the near future, right? And then let's say they picked up in November, then they'd have November, December, January, and February, right, to play. That's 4 months to play a season. There is a bunch of, stuff that would still be in place that they could utilize from the last season. So it's feasible in my mind. And the way I'm looking at it is These college players, do you want to play 2 seasons in 1 year? Like everybody's talking about the damages that COVID can do to the heart and the body. Well, what about playing 2 seasons in 1 year? You could end a lot of college players' careers, right? Some college players, they don't even want to go back to college because they don't want to tear up their knees. So you think those college players are going to play 2 seasons in 1 year, right? And then if you play in the spring, then do you take the chance of missing the draft? What if you get hurt in the spring and you devalue yourself?
Right. Look at all the players that probably right now are ranked in the top 50 in the draft. Now, if you're a player and you know that if you get on the field, you're going to risk losing your position, would you go out on the field? Now, there have been several prominent players already. I know the edge rusher out of Miami, Rousseau, Micah Parsons, the stud linebacker out of Penn State. They've already said they're not playing, and that's going to greatly impact their teams as well. Of course, maybe not so much Penn State because the Big Ten's already done. But anyway, the point is if you have key players that are not going to be playing, that's going to impact their teams.
True. But I mean, you got to give them. You got to play. I guess if the NFL is going to be able to play, and the Big 12 is going to play, and the SEC is going to play, I wouldn't want to stand. I wouldn't want to sit out. And I damn sure wouldn't want to go play in the spring and then miss out on my chance to get in the NFL. And right, what if they do? What if it doesn't work out in the spring? That's a lot of time off. A lot of people talk about, there's a difference between being in shape and then being in football shape. And a lot of times, when players try to come back, well, he hasn't played football in a long time. So I don't know. In my mind, I think that this is the XFL's window. Let's say the Big 12 and the SEC does bow out. This is the window for the XFL to come in and show that they can compete, and that they're a real deal. I don't know, but that's just my.
This is really going to impact the college scouts who are out looking to bring in talent for next year.
And recruits too. There's a big offensive lineman recruit that was committed to Ohio State, I think, but he decommitted. So that's the other thing. If you don't play football now, you're going to lose a lot of commits, right? So how's that going to affect your team? Are you going to be ready for the spring? What if a lot of players start to decommit? And I don't know. And if the players don't want to play now, what's going to make them want to play in the spring? Maybe if there's a vaccination, they'll take that vaccination and feel better. I don't know. It's tricky.
I'm just concerned that some of these conferences are trying to rush on the field too quickly, and that something's going to happen. Somebody's going to get really, really sick. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that they're not just rushing into a decision to try to make as much money as they can off these players while they can before they get shut down.
I think that one thing that's being missed with college is this. The NFL can be in somewhat of a bubble. The NBA is in a bubble. The WNBA is in a bubble. The NHL is in a partial bubble. They're able to do that. College football can't do that. They have students that need to go to class. They have students that need to interact with other students. There's no way to protect them from what's going on outside if the school continues to run as it normally does. So you're not only exposing the players to it, you're exposing everyone to it.
What if these students get COVID going to class?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Well, are they going to class? If they cancel football, are they going to cancel class? And there's also a president in one of these teams. I can't remember. I wish I'd remembered, but he has a son that's going to a school that's going to play, but he's saying that it's not safe to play for his school. And you say that these colleges are making money off of these students or the student athletes. I mean, how much does the average college tuition cost? How much does it cost to get an education at Ohio State or Notre Dame or Texas? How much? I don't know how much. Do you know how much does that cost?
It's in the 6 figures now.
So it's a lot of money. You know what I mean? So, and if you want to get into the further on into the debate, the players wanted to get paid. So do they get paid and get scholarships, or do they just get paid, got to pay their own way, and then those scholarships go to somebody else that could get it and go to school? So I don't know. It's, you gotta, I think that if you want to play football, you're going to play football. You know what I mean? Cause you can get sick going anywhere, that's
particularly to a COVID party thrown on campus.
Exactly.
So, I don't
And
know.
if it's not safe to have in-person instruction, is it safe to have a football team playing another football team? I would say no.
That's my whole deal. I mean, as much as I'd like to see these players play, I mean, and again, I'm not putting all the players in the same bubble, no pun intended, but sometimes you got to protect kids from themselves.
Yeah, and if I was a college athlete, I would be you know, it'd take wild horses to to pull me away from playing. I wouldn't care. I would want to play.
How is playing in the spring and then playing the following fall protecting the kids?
They can't play in the spring. There's no way.
The NFL draft can go as late as June 2nd, according to the collective bargaining agreement.
You think the NFL is going to do that? They've already lost how much money? The Raiders lost $500 million not having fans. They're going to continue to lose money like that?
The NFL's not going to change their timeline.
I don't think so. They were wrestling with the players to get them to play. You know, they wanted them to play 2 preseason games, and they finally gave up just so they can have a season. Like, the NFL is not trying to change their schedule.
You think Major League Baseball will be happy with that? And let's think about that. You've got now scheduling issues that you have to work around that as well as the baseball schedule. So the schedules are pretty much set. So if they miss their window and their fall winter window, they can't change their schedule and all of a sudden do it in the spring. There's just no way.
I think that we need to read up on what Ian Rappaport was reporting today about the flexibility of the NFL. He thinks that they will be a lot more flexible. Who knows?
I don't think they will. This is where I disagree with him.
And yeah, I've been listening to a lot of radio stations and stuff, and then there's a lot of people out there. I don't think the NFL is gonna budge.
I know they want to make their money, but there's no way they can make their money back. It's just they have to just kind of cut their losses as much as they can, and then plan on next year, 2021. I mean, everybody's taking a hit, and they can't try to make that money back because it's just not going to be made back.
Right. It's not there to be made back.
Correct.
All right. Well, next week we will probably have a much better idea of what's going on with the NFL and with colleges. Next week we will be moving on to padded practices, so I'm looking forward to that.
And please give us a call, Raider Nation, at 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or a text message at that number, or send us a message via social media, and we will share your thoughts.
All right. Hey, Homer, did you know?
All right, this week's version of Hey Homer, Did You Know? Now, this story comes to you courtesy of the year 1973, which will be the upcoming episode of my own Raider Roots podcast, episode 19.
Nice plug.
Now, yeah, there you go. In the off-season of 1973, before training camp started in Santa Rosa, the Raiders and Rams played a charity basketball game. The halftime entertainment featured a tricycle race between Rams linebacker Isaiah Robertson and Raiders linebacker Phil Villapiano. Phil won the race, and his prize was an air hockey table. He brought the table with him to training camp, and the players practiced on it throughout camp. The air hockey table became a focal point of the downtime and a source of camaraderie among the players. All the games they played off the field led up to a culminating air hockey tournament toward the end of training camp. Villapiano and his roommate, Mike Ciani, put together the tournament along with a set of rules. The most important rule, rule number 30, was something that all the players took to heart and became the team's mantra going forward. The rule plainly stated that cheating is highly encouraged. The players kind of laughed to themselves, but this truly became a rallying cry within the organization to simply find a way to get it done, which is just another way of saying, just win, baby. And that's where the phrase cheating is encouraged started within the Raider organization. And you can learn more about 1973 in the upcoming episode of the T3 Raider Roots podcast. And that was about as cheesy a plug as you're ever going to hear. So I asked Homer, did you know?
It's a great plug for a great show.
Yeah, I knew that cheating was encouraged. You know, I knew that rule existed, but no, I did not know the origin of that. But yeah, that's a shameless plug for sure. I don't even plug my show on this podcast.
And it all started with an air hockey tournament. I guess technically it started with a tricycle race.
Cool. That's not exactly where I would have imagined it starting, but it works.
I'm just trying to picture Phil Villapiano on a tricycle. That's hilarious.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Were these like little kids' tricycles or were they
Yes,
adult
little
tricycles?
kids tricycles. You got two linebackers on little kids tricycles.
So they like went to, what would it have been, Kmart back then and got two little kids' tricycles?
I suppose, yeah.
I would have paid good money to see that.
Oh yeah.
I wish there was video.
All right, and that leads us to the most important segment of the show. Heidi's Heroes.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
The Raiders' first star player was a running back from the AFL days. In fact, he remains the third leading rusher in Raiders history behind only Marcus Allen and Mark Van Eegen. While his career was cut short by injuries before the AFL and NFL merged, his impact on the team and league spans generations. Clem Daniels was a young black player out of Prairie View University who was traded to the Raiders in 1961. He was one of the best players in the AFL and became the first Raider to rush for over 1,000 yards in a season. In 1965, he led a boycott of the AFL All-Star Game in New Orleans. You see, what had happened is when the black players arrived in the city, they were treated like second-class citizens. They weren't allowed to use the same taxi cabs at the airport. In fact, one black player was thrown out of a cab when he jumped in with a white teammate to head to their destination. Over the next several days, black players were victims of overt racism at restaurants, hotels, and nightclubs throughout the city. This led Daniels to organize a boycott of the All-Star Game. 60,000 fans were expected at the game, and the black players refused to participate. The city leaders pleaded with them to reconsider, but the players held strong and actually managed to get the game moved to Houston because they had been treated so poorly in New Orleans. This is only one example where Clem stood up and fought against social injustices. After breaking his leg in 1967, leading to a shortened career, Daniels became a business owner and civic leader in the Bay Area. He continued to be a fighter for civil rights throughout the South for the rest of his life. Last year, Daniels passed away at the age of 83, but he leaves behind a legacy of standing up for civil rights and being an agent of change. Any man like him obviously deserves to be named a Heidi's hero.
Rest in peace, Clem Daniels, and just another example of Raider excellence when it comes to social injustice and civil rights.
Amen to that.
Don't have much more to say.
You said it all in the damn paragraph.
Yeah, it was a long read. There's not much more to add.
There you go.
All right, and that brings us to an end of this episode. Thanks again to our listeners for joining us on the Only Nation podcast.
Be sure to call us, Raider Nation, at 904-701-8667. Leave us a voicemail or send us a text message. We want to hear from you. You can email us at onlynationpod@gmail.com, and you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at onlynationpod. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. Search the Only Nation Podcast. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on all your favorite social media accounts and podcasting apps. Don't forget to send us a message with your name and address, and we'll send you some free Only Nation Podcast swag. Also, check out our new website at onlynationpod.com.
Until next time, everyone, go Raiders.
Go Raiders.
Stay strong, stay safe, and go Raiders!
I always think of Scooby-Doo when you do that.